welcome to They Think It's All Sober, Mr. Alex Green.
Cheers, guys.
The fear, the apprehension.
Yeah.
This is one for the books.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's set the scene here, because I've realised something. Because obviously I've known you both, and our listeners will know that Tom was in the first band I ever managed, quote unquote, when I was 16, 17. You were the singer. So we've known each other, me and you, for 18 years. But I think what's really nice about this conversation is I don't really know you at all. We get on very well and we really like each other.
Yeah.
But in terms of your story, I've got no idea. Tom and you obviously know each other intimately.
Too well.
And in many ways, I'm sure the listeners will be intrigued to find out.
We've probably had a lot of conversations that we just don't remember as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, lots of...
yeah, you're really scraping the barrel this episode. This is like, you must suspend the budget.
You're like, how much do we want people to go sober? I know, let's get him on.
Well, I think the kind of the whole MO of the pod is that we've had, you know, and I suppose just being honest, when we first started the pod, we needed people, we wanted to get people on that, I guess, had some semblance of like social numbers and influences while we started. But we've actually found that in recent seasons, the episodes that people have taken most value from are from, I guess, like more normal, not that you're a normal human, you're exceptional human being, but like, you know, you don't, but without falling into the influence of celebrity sphere.
I think
like,
exceptionally mental or exceptionally...
We'll get there, baby.
Yeah,
but no, I think I was talking to my partner about this week. It's like anyone who stops drinking can be sober, and that's amazing, and we shout about that. But I think what's been really interesting about some of our guests is like, and the ones that our audience have really garnered to are like the ones that have genuine stories of like triumph and overcoming and like seeing a transformation where people are like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah,
sobriety's done that to them.
I've made a big change.
Exactly.
well, you're approaching 2 years now.
I'm about a month off 2 years sobriety, which is mental.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And it's gone, I mean, from my perspective, time just goes very quickly anyway, but it doesn't feel that long ago, you know, and I'm sure we'll get to the story of the kind of, your final hurrah. You know, I remember speaking to you not long after New Year's Day,
My
a couple of years ago.
Over after this.
No,
I generally nearly did a U-turn on the motorway. I was like, I'm not going to have a
Where's
job.
the nearest pub?
Yeah.
But no, I mean, you've got a fascinating story. But so nearly 2 years sober, you know, and I've seen your life change in a remarkable way.
Thank you, man.
You know, and you know, it's a big thing, and I think of all people that needed to go sober, you were at the top of my list of people I wished.
It's like all the people that I thought were really going to fuck their lives up. You, sir, you were
I
the
didn't
one.
let you down.
No, but it's a massive thing, and I'm very proud of you. But it's but I think let's as per usual, what we're going to do is take a little step back into the old time machine. It's been a hot minute.
I'm just going to say something here, and I know I mentioned it at the end of last season, but I'm still so pissed off that Rob from Big Drop did the best time machine of all time, and now my time machine just is like some kind of Timu time machine.
Don't worry about it.
No offense to Timu if you're listening, give us.
Well, I hope you've been practicing because we've had enough time off.
I haven't,
season, so.
but I'm ready. Are you ready?
Okay, let's go.
Alex, you're in my time machine.
Right, step in.
Doors locked, lights are on, helmets on. I know you.
Right, helmets off.
What's happening?
You're back.
All right, okay.
So I guess, I mean, this is just for our listeners to get sort of an understanding of the relationship that alcohol played perhaps when you were younger. And so what were your like first memories of alcohol growing up?
I remember, you know, finding alcohol about 14 years old.
Yeah.
And immediately I took that first drink, and I think I'll just straight up say, I'm not just somebody who's had a bit of a bad relationship with alcohol. Like, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict. Like, everything I do, I've already had 3 fucking coffees. It's like 9 a.m. You know, like, I just had a coffee, and then Jamie, you're like, do you want one? I'm like, yeah, go on. You know,
At least
that's
it's not
everything.
cocaine.
But everything I do is to excess.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a person of extremes, and it's something I've been working on. I was always trying to fill this void, I think, inside myself, like from a young age. And 14, I found drink, and it was immediately like the shoulders dropped straight away, and I felt calm and I felt present, because I was always, with a lot of these things, it's not actually about the drink. And I'm sure you've heard this, but it's about your thinking and not the drinking. but immediately as I had that drink, like my shoulders dropped, I felt relaxed, I felt present, I wasn't in my own head, I wasn't overthinking everything, and I am an overthinker. And it can be quite stressful, like living sober for me. So drink and drugs was my medication, and like immediately you're trying to justify the next reason to have a drink, I think, you know, even from like the age of 14. But I always just was like, send it. Like from 14 years old, it wasn't like, sorry, I think I just spat in your face, Tom. Some froth from my third flat white just blinding you at 9 a.m. It's not the worst thing I've probably done to you, yeah, I always had that bad relationship, and I always couldn't stop, really. I was just getting paralytic from a young age, I remember that.
I was going to say, so like that 14, because some of our guests, you sort of hear it and it was like, oh, a couple of drinks and mates in the park, and one time it went really wrong, and then I didn't really drink again until uni, and then they developed a problem.
Yeah.
For you, was it very much like, this is sorting something out, whatever the fuck it is in my brain, Alex Green is fixed with this?
That's a statement.
Was
I don't know if I
fixed with this.
Yeah, I think, you know, if it wasn't drink, it was weed. If it wasn't weed, it was other substances. You know, I would always justify something, you know, and I was always trying to, when it got bad later down the line, you know, it's like, well, I'll just drink beer. Well, I'll just drink red wine. I remember I've jumped the gun. Like, I've literally gone off the script, so sorry.
No, it's fine.
Good luck with the editing on this one. But like, I remember going down Brewdog not that long before I got sober, for example, and I was desperately and pathetically trying to, I can still do it my way, you know, I'm going to figure this out after like number 300 fail and disaster has happened, you know, and I remember going, I'm going to have a non-alc in between each beer. And I went and have a beer and then have a non-alc. And what do you think happened by the third drink?
You know, it was all beer.
I was drinking the 15.5% stout. Yeah. You know, like I was 2 of them in a pint glass, you know, and that's my pint. And then I'll go back to a punk AF, you know, and then another one. Like, what's the point? What's the
but that's just the justification in your head, isn't it?
That's the illness, isn't it?
Yeah.
The denial, I suppose. But it's always, that kind of puts, that's the progression, and it got way worse than doing that, having a few stouts and Brewdog, strong stouts. But like, you know, that's where my head's always been.
Well, when you were, rewinding back to sort of the younger days, when you were like 14, 15, like, did you recognise at the time then that it was potentially unhealthy, or do you think, you know, because being in our kind of friendship group and sort of growing up, I mean, I suppose I didn't really meet you till like 16, 17, but similar sort of like friends where a lot of teen drinking, were you aware that it was to like excess and it was unhealthy? Not or were you just kind of like, well, this is life?
I think I just gravitated towards it naturally and subconsciously. I was like, this feels like it's serving me. This feels like a solution. And it enabled me to not actually really have to deal with what I was dealing with day to day, because I always had an escape. So I never had to have a stretch long enough of sobriety to really have to face up to anything, if that makes sense. It was just reset. As soon as things started to ramp up a little bit and I started to get tense, or things got a bit too much, or past traumas and things, which I don't really want to delve into, but like, you know, it was like, let's get fucked up. And gravitating towards friends that also had a similar thing going on.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys a question, but this is what's fascinating, right? Because we're all the same age. And I had my group in Wickham, and we were like real fun time party people. We were like, yay! But ours never went into this sort of like slightly aggy chaos mode, but we were like really chaotic. And then I remember your group of friends, but my friends were all in like pop punk bands, it was like a different energy. You guys were in like heavy metal, getting out something, right? Whatever it was. Your band was like anger at its purest, right? But then your partying also kind of matched that, and I wonder if there's something in like you guys gravitating as a group of friends, because you were all so lovely. But I remember being out with you a few times, and something would go. It was like, oh my fucking God, the Reading lot are out.
Yeah, I think there's...
What do you think was in that?
I think there's a couple things going on. I think I was a bit like, when I joined the band, I was a bit older than a year or two, whatever we are. And that at the time seemed a bit more. And I think I'd been, you know, maybe a bit more exposed to that sort of lifestyle. I definitely brought drugs to the party, you know, and I don't feel good about that, because there's an element, I think Tom actually shared on one of the podcasts, like, I certainly, whether Tom would have gone down that path anyway or not, I don't know.
Safe to say I would have.
Yeah.
He's
been a DJ, like, but I definitely still, you know, I definitely wasn't a great influence, I suppose, on Tom. And Tom and myself thought we were really cool at the time by just being complete bellends and being as sort of destructive as possible. And we had a lot of fun as well. Don't get me wrong. We had a lot of fun. Had some funny times, but the consequences aren't the same then. Yeah. In your 20s, it's not the same. It's when everybody starts to settle down and starts to change and grow up and get into marriages, and you're still like, purple turtle on a Thursday.
Well, I think it was justification for the behaviour, because I think actually within our band and our friendship group, I think everyone was having their own shit and issues to dealing with, and then we were playing this chaotic music that, you're right, was like anger, and like it was very complex. It was probably a reflection of where all our heads were at the time.
I don't know how I managed to perform that as in the or you in the some of the states like we were in.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Can I ask another question? As like men, I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Like, it's probably taken me up until now to like feel really comfortable with my male friends to be like, hey bro, I'm having a really shit day, or hey bro, this is going on at home. As mates back then, did you guys communicate if something was up? Would it be like, I'm having a bad day, let's go to the pub, and then that was it? Like, how did you communicate as men back in those
not in that band
days?
It was literally like, sorry, I'm not even letting Tom talk. My ADHD plus the coffee's going
nuts.
Mate, it's your podcast.
Yeah,
this is your life.
This is your life.
Nah, like there was a bit of a bully culture in our band. It was like it was your day. Like if it was your day, because there were 6 people in the band, plus maybe some merch guys, like driver or whatever. We're all shoved in this van. And like, if it was your day, you just get tortured the entire day by everybody. And then you'd think it was really funny until you got really wasted and woke up hungover, and the sort of pendulum swung around to you, and you're like, oh no.
It's my day.
And as soon as you showed any kind of, as soon as anyone got an inkling of you being a bit like pissed off or like triggered by somebody winding you up, game over. It was all in. It was like that, wasn't it? Like a little bit, I think it was like fun, but how many people got really genuinely upset? Like
yeah, a lot. And how many people got upset by us,
by the band as well?
Do you think again, like I talk about, you know, team drinking and being surrounded by mates that probably drunk. You were saying it didn't really like flag itself as being perhaps an issue back then. Do you think, like looking back at the band days, so let's go to like early 20s, do you think you recognise that there was a problem then? Or do you think it was still like fairly disguised by the rest of the reprobates around you?
A little bit of both. Like I think the one thing I didn't kind of say was, I think Reading kind of had, you know, you talked about that Aggie, it was the kind of environment we were growing up in. Like I grew up in Bracknell, and I spent time in Bracknell and Reading, and it was definitely like, if you went out in Reading, like it was always kicking off. It was always kicking off every Friday. And I know there's loads of places around the UK, around the world where that happens, but it was very much like, I don't know, there was just a bit of people around Reading were just, you'd always go to like Download Festival or something and be in the guest area, and someone would go, there'd be someone on acid dressed as some like, I don't think I'm not even going to say it's someone we know. I'm not going to say what they were dressed as, right? But everyone was very triggered by it.
Right.
And everyone was going, who the fuck's that idiot? And we're like, yeah, that's so-and-so from Reading. It was always someone like from that area, really, that was, it was just a bit of the culture really from around that area. And now I can't remember the point of the question.
Well, just saying about the like recognizing problems.
Yeah.
You know, at what point do you think like you went, this isn't healthy and it's not normal?
I think I kind of probably deep down knew, but I wasn't at a point to face it, and I knew I still had like mileage in the tank, if that makes sense. Like it was still kind of acceptable at that age, and I probably thought it was a bit clever. Like we would always have a debrief, you know, there'd be the friends we'd ring around the next day, and it'd be like war stories. Like you almost got like a medal of honor for like the worst behavior.
I think people like justified it, and it was almost like and you know, we've spoken about this in other seasons, but it was an era, and it was only 10 or 15 years ago, but it was an era where like society was so wildly different. You even had like, you know, your front magazines, and that was like celebrating party culture, and like if you're in a band and you couldn't afford to go to the next show, don't worry, Jägermeister are going to give you 10 free bottles of. So like the culture was almost encouraging the behavior, and no one was really holding anyone accountable. Now, if one of my clients did that, I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing?
It's kind of wild when you look back now, like what was acceptable.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I was different. I was a different person depending on who I was around. You know, I was quite a chameleon. Like I think now I'm just me, you know, and I've done a lot of work to become that. I don't know whether that's a good thing or not.
Well, no,
give me a beer. But you know, yeah, I think you're gonna have to steer me.
Mate, I think
I think all over the place.
To be honest, like from my perspective, like, and having, you know, known you half my life and gone through all of this stuff, I was in probably my own world with my drinking and how it was affecting. Yeah. And there was a tipping point for me where it suddenly didn't become fun anymore. Yeah. And I think the tipping point where I realised it for you, and again, if you want to edit the story out, you can, but like was when I thought, fuck, like this isn't actually fun and you need help. Was it probably in Nottingham when, you know, the long story short, when it was after a show, and I can't remember even what happened. There was an altercation in the street with someone. Someone pulled a gun out on you. At which point most people would be like, what the fuck? You looked at someone who's got a fucking gun out and you were like, do it. You would do me a fucking favour. No fear. And I went...
That kind of makes me a bit emotional, really.
Fuck, man.
And at that time, I was like, what the fuck?
That's made me a little bit like... you could easily laugh at that story, but something's just struck that.
You know,
that's
you think that like... That's
you didn't give a fuck. That was the point. I was like, mate, like this is like for me, like, you know, I'll try not to get emotional about that. And we've kind of jumped to like breezing this conversation. We've been breezing along, and it's like you think where you have to be in your head, whether I was on cocaine, I was drunk, my career's over. But you know, fuck it, you know, some people just, I don't think people even thought this. I was going to say some people probably just thought I was a bit nuts, and it was like almost got like a pat on the back for it. I don't think so. 2 people were with me, and I remember they were like white as a ghost the next day, you know, and still shook up. And so was I when I sobered up, but there's nothing clever or nothing brave about it. It wasn't like I was like some tough guy who like, I actually swung for the guy and missed as well because I was like messed up, and he was like, "What is going on? Like this, I've got a gun out." Like, but I could have been killed, easily. And the messed up thing is in that moment, like I didn't actually think like. I felt a mixture of things. I felt anger. You know, one, that this person was threatening my life, but I also felt like it could have been a way out, you know, which is... Yeah, I mean, it's...
You know, to really put to be in that kind of headspace is pretty sad, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, like, the weird thing is as well, like, from that moment in time, like... We always say this as well, from the moment where you realise you do have an issue to stopping is a long old fucking...
Man, that's enough of a reason.
Yeah, I was
like, That's quite.
No, but you continued. Like
That's
at that
what I
point.
mean.
Like, no,
That's what I mean.
And
Like-
like, you know, and getting onto, I suppose, then like health issues you thought might have slowed you down.
What, the heart attack?
Yeah. Like
That wasn't enough. Neither was the surgery for.
Okay, let's pack.
really-
So
Yeah,
I just want
yeah.
to timeline this a little bit. So you guys are in the band, sort of you're maybe 17, 18. You're
No,
16.
probably when this is happening, we're probably like 21.
Okay.
Maybe.
yeah, I was
20,
probably
21.
I was probably not. Yeah, so you're 21.
Yeah.
So early 20s, band's doing well in the grand scheme of like where the
Yeah.
industry is and what that scene is. Drinks a big part of it, drugs a big part of it. You're kind of known as this party band. You're all kind of leading the charge in your own ways. You're all clearly dealing with your own traumas, but not discussing it. And that's coming out in things like this. You're having moments of violence outwardly and inwardly, and that something like that happens. Would you mind sharing some other kind of moments? Because you just like brazenly mentioned a heart attack.
Yeah.
Well, like, yeah.
So like what? So,
I just want to say, like, because now this is typical ADHD. I've said something, we've had about 4 conversations and it's come back to me. When I was saying about I was like different people, it kind of still relates to this conversation that, you know, I was still having a very professional, like, career.
Yeah.
You know, I still do. Well, I did until this podcast went out. And I was very, like, I think approachable and friendly and whatever. But like when it came to music and going out, that was just my therapy in a
that's what
sense,
I mean.
in the worst kind of way.
but I've never known you other than like Alex that I high five, love, and we've always had a very professional, friendly relationship.
Yeah,
and I've heard
yeah.
all these war stories. This is why I kind of want to timeline it,
Yeah.
because I've seen only one side of you.
Well, I was like Russian roulette, man. It's like you didn't know. It's like there's one bullet in. Oh, this sounds so corny. It sounds like I'm a verse from a new metal band or something. One bullet in the chamber. But like
there was luckily
most
there
of the
wasn't in
time, I
Nottingham.
was good fun, I think, and like I'd have a good time, and then there'd just be that one time where it went too far or something. I think just something was broken inside me until I did the work, and you know that unfortunately could just fire off. And yeah, you know, I had unfortunately gained an alter ego name called Vernon.
That's Vernon.
Yeah.
You've discussed Vernon,
Vernon.
in another episode.
Vernon's currently still locked up in a jail cell in Hungary. He's not
We'll get to
left.
that story.
he's
Yeah.
not leaving there.
Yeah, he's not
out.
leaving.
He's been, but no, I mean, like I said, that was that moment in time, and then I think you recognised that the shit was going on.
Yeah.
And I think in your own way, maybe tried to deal with it. You know, and maybe made some headway, maybe didn't. I don't know. But then I guess then timelining it as well. Our band stopped. You started another one. Called Attention Thieves. I came and filled in on some shows for you, and I guess the party just
I
continued.
just don't want people to YouTube that now because of the haircuts and there's some bad videos, man.
The band name called
Yeah, just beep it out, bro. Yeah.
And so the partying continued with Attention Thieves. I came and filled in on a
It
few
was
shows with you.
probably the worst band like I could have
Yeah, some messy fuckers.
Yeah.
for sure.
gone on to join, and it just like I love those guys, and that's essentially what kind of were we good enough, you know. I think the music we managed to create, considering the state we were in, it's like not bad. You know, we had some reasonable success, you know, and did some good tours and festivals, and you know, got some good play on like Radio 1 and XFM and Kerrang, got some good support, etc. But yeah, like as you know, as much as we sort of built bridges, we burnt them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the problem. As soon as you get known as one of those bands, and like there's festivals we went to, which I remember we got like blacklisted, I think, from like Live Nation or something. But like with me, there was always like it could get aggressive, you know, and it was darker, you know, from me. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
It was darker. And then again, like moving on to the health stuff, I mean, you nearly died from, you know, basically on stage.
Yeah.
And like
Were
came
you
off.
playing that show?
I was.
Yeah.
And I
like the way I can't remember who was
I
actually.
mean, I just thought you were being melodramatic, and you know, you went off stage, went to hospital, and had like a heart attack.
Yeah.
And again,
Then
you
the
thought
next
that
day I
would
was
have hit
drinking beer and-
thought that would have hit the brakes.
No.
How did you mind me asking, and tell me if this is too
It wasn't
intrusive,
like a
but-
major, like I didn't need surgery or anything.
Yeah, but how did you feel
I ended
in
up
that,
on like
in
medication.
that moment? Because obviously, like you say, that should be a bit of a wake up call. Or again, was it? And again, please do tell me if I'm being intrusive with this. But was it another kind of Nottingham moment where you're like, well, whatever?
Well, it kind of went into the next press campaign, and it was like used to like, it was like almost glorified, but with a tone of, you know, but we're spreading positivity while you shouldn't, you know, but it was still, and I was like, yeah, this is a good opportunity now to get sober. And then obviously that didn't last very long. I think I just didn't have any answers. Like, until I went and did the work that I needed to do, I was never going to do it alone. And it was just desperation. Like, you know, by the end, I'd sort of really accepted my fate, I think. I genuinely didn't think I was going to live past 30. And then I did. But yeah, the consequences just kept getting worse, really.
Well, you went through a period of, I guess, like forced sobriety for a while because of your health, right?
Yeah, and that's what's called a dry drunk. When you're basically like unmedicated, because that's what you're doing, you know. And I had like, that was my life. It was like, I'd go on a tour, like get wasted the whole time, come off, try and like, new me, I'm going to do this, and string a few weeks together. I've done martial arts my whole life, and I've trained a lot, and I managed, I went through years of not, but then I'd have years of being very fit and being in the gym, but also kind of derailing things as well, you know, with, I wasn't like, I was at times, but I wasn't always throughout my life, like some everyday drinker and drugs, but I would go on just wild benders and then be like, oh, I've got to sort it out. I've got to, you know, that cycle. Yeah. I was in that permanent cycle throughout my life. And then there were periods, and towards the end, where it just got really, really dark.
Do you mind, I guess, conscious of time, and also that, do you mind if we talk about that period towards the end? Because then that'll bring us on to the amazing place that you're in.
Yeah.
Now, kind of what were the signs for you, and where did you get to, and how did you get there, and what headspace were you in?
Yeah. So I'd been in a long-term relationship with a person who's, you know, very special to me. We're not together anymore. Beautiful person. And they really stuck by me through a lot. And eventually just everything drifted apart. I don't think there was any other solution really than to sort of separate. I then thought, right, I'm out of this relationship. So I wasn't living in the house with that person. I'm like, how old am I at this point? 35 years old. I'm 37 now. So I moved back in with my mum. So I'm in this like spare room. And with my savings, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go on the biggest, do you know what's the good thing to do? It's not sort your life out and get a new place or whatever. It's like, let's go on the biggest bender known to man. And then I got involved with somebody else, you know, and anyway, that person, you know, wasn't, also had their own stuff going on. I then spend a lot of money. I then decide that what's needed is to go to Hungary.
I remember thinking, this doesn't bode well.
Well, you actually said, don't get arrested. And I was like laughing about it. And then you were like, no, I'm serious.
Yeah.
And I generally was in a place where I think I was quite out of control. And like, I think I got like 3 or 4 texts like that saying, don't get arrested.
So people had noticed your behaviour.
Behaviour was just a bit wild, yeah. And I just definitely wasn't, my head, you know, it wasn't just the drinking, it was my head, you know, where I was, how it was evolving. And essentially, you know, I mean, put it this way, I got like pepper sprayed by a taxi driver the first day we got there, you know, and then went clubbing on the pool covered in pepper spray, and like, all right, and there's like, you know, the girl's like crying. She's like, what's going on? Yeah, I just got pepper sprayed. Most people go home, take a shower, you know, like,
set the time
we
for the
don't need
trip.
to say anymore, but
Yeah.
that's like day one.
Yeah.
But come day 4, day 5, like the drinking, the pieing has continued. There's been little to no sleep. And I'm doing something that I've done many times over the years in that state, which is like there are no breaks. We're just going to keep going until like the wheels completely come off.
Yeah.
And they did, you know, I ended up hanging out with these guys, and I ended up getting in an altercation with a couple of guys. Some people got hurt. Police were involved. Some people got hurt. And I got some punishment handed out to me, courtesy of the Hungarian police. And you know, you're lying in like what's essentially like a Hungarian dungeon. There's nothing. There's not even a bed. There's nothing. You know, you're just in a stone dungeon, shit dripping off the walls, puddles, and I'm lying just in a pool of blood on the floor. Like, you know, reality sobered up pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know, I thought, what's going to happen to me here? You know, am I going to die? Like, you start thinking about like, am I ever going to get out of here? What's the kind of sentence going to be, you know? And you start thinking about all the people that really mean a lot to you in your life and who you love. And how did I get here? You know, really. And I like just prayed. And I thought about my little nephew Jack as well a lot, because he hasn't got a dad. He means a lot to me. So I'm trying not to get emotional. I didn't want to like, you know, I just thought about, sorry guys. I thought about people close to me, you know, my friends. And I thought, fuck me, man, how selfish am I? You know, like I need help. If I mean, it was beyond help at that point. Who's going to help me in here? But I thought if I ever get the opportunity, if I get out of this place, you know, I need to change. Luckily, I did get out. It's not a place you want to spend too much time. And I was like, right, I need to change my life. Of course, what did I do when I got out? I went and got absolutely smashed. So I shouldn't laugh about that. But when I got home, I was drinking and it just wasn't doing anything.
Right. So something somewhere.
Something had changed.
Shifted.
I think the last thing I drank was some really shit, like after dinner liqueur as well, which is.
Well, I remember I think you rang me, and I think you'd like literally were like, you were still there, and you were like, I need a drink, and I remember you saying like, when I'm back, and that's it.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I guess is understandable when you've just what you've gone through, and there's nothing else. You probably defaulted to just like, I need a fucking beer.
Yeah.
And then you got back, and then I think that was it.
Yeah. Thing is, man, like as a person, I'm not who I projected at all. Like I actually as a person care a lot. I think I'd like to think Tom knows that as well. Like I really do care about people. And sometimes I think when you care a lot, like it's too much, man. Like you need to, or you're dealing with a lot of things from your past. Like you need to, it was too much. I couldn't deal with everything going on. I couldn't deal with life, and I had to just tone it down with alcohol, but I just couldn't drink properly.
Yeah.
So it was always going to lead to a disaster. So anyway, I get back home to UK, I'm literally like kissing the tarmac. Like, so glad to be back. Yeah. But I've lost my job as well at this point. So I'm living I'm no house, no girlfriend, no job.
Formally banned from a country.
Formally banned from Hungary. And I'm just sort of in my mum's spare room. And I just started laughing, man. Like I didn't know what else to do. I was just like, this is nuts. Like, and I watched a particular podcast, and I ended up in AA, but I watched a particular podcast, and it was the realest thing I'd ever heard, and it was telling my story, you know, essentially. The details were different, but it was my story. And a few things happen. People talk about like God moments, and you can believe what you want. I was always I believe in a higher power. I was always a complete atheist until I got into like recovery. Something got me there, and there was a lot of like God moments that happened along the way, and I could disclose those, but I don't think I will. I think I've told you about that, like pulling those guys out of the car wreck and everything. But yeah, I ended up in AA. As soon as I got in there, my initial thing was, I'm going to do dry January, like get me through dry January. And someone else shared, and I went, yeah, it's going to be a year. And then after the third share back, and it was my same story, and I could relate, I was like, I'm done, man. And that was a relief, because I knew that I didn't know how I was gonna deal with this or how it was gonna get fixed, but I knew I had an answer, and I knew that I thought alcohol was the solution. It wasn't. You know, the solution was there. I didn't know what it meant, or the steps and all that stuff. But is alcohol still the problem? Not really, it's my head. But I wasn't prepared to let go of that way of life. And that way of life was causing me a lot of destruction, and people around me as well. So when I finally accepted that, and that's what it's about, acceptance, it was a relief. I had a label for it, and I didn't know how I was going to do it, and I'm repeating myself here, but that's when the journey began, so to speak. And I got a sponsor, and I went through the steps, and it was tough. You know, the first 3 months, it was rough, and I was clinging on for bare life, you know, but I did everything that was suggested. When I started getting through sort of step 4 and step 5 and doing the inventory, I don't know if you know about this, but it's like, this is a saying that a lot of people say, but it was like all the stuff I was carrying around with me, it was like, I'm releasing this like a rock at a time, you know, this sack of rocks, and I was just releasing. I'm sure probably people have said this on the podcast before maybe, but I was just releasing the load, and it's the best thing I've ever done. And I was always a blagger. I was a jack of all trades. It's the first thing I've done fucking properly, you know, really in my life. And it's changed my life. Yeah. You know, I'm a good friend. I'm reliable. And my career's going, well, has been going well. Music's been going well, you know, started a new project.
Mate, your fucking fitness, your jiu-jitsu.
My fitness, I won, you know, recently, you know, doing well in like my jiu-jitsu tournaments. You came and watched me. I won gold at the Reading Open, but I also entered something called the Absolute, which is the only thing Tom stayed for. It's really hard to win that. And Tom brought my godson, and just watched me get beaten up by a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, like literally a Brazilian dude, and then just bailed. I was like, and then I like won the rest of the fights and won my But I was like, great, like you've come for this. But no, I put up a fight. You know, I made the full.
No, you did well, mate.
Yeah, but that guy was incredible. Anyway, I'm going off here. But yeah, like fitness is through the roof. Like I'm doing PTing on the side. Like I train just as much as I drank. Like it's probably unhealthy. Like I train 2-3 hours a day, and I have done for nearly 2 years. I mean, I've been doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu like 6 years, so I was still doing it in the madness. I've done, you know, kickboxing, Muay Thai, which maybe wasn't the best thing for the public, for the headspace I used to be in.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, like
Best thing for the public. Sorry, that's probably
my life's positive now, and I give back. I do service. You know,
well, mate, I think you
sponsor somebody.
You do.
I also I know it's anonymous, but he asked me to give him a shout out. Big Alf, shout out to you. It's my first ever sponsee, and because he watches the show as well.
Amazing.
He said, give out a shout to Alf. I said, it's anonymous, dude. He was like, don't care. So just to say.
Well, I think you, again, and I kind of feel like perhaps it's the same as Jamie and I, when you, I guess, have a certain reputation, for lack of a better word, for being a sort of party guy and for being out of control. And I feel like when someone like yourself changes their life and then such positive stuff starts happening, it does again put another flag in the sand. And I kind of feel like
that's what you did, man.
Well, I feel like anyone that problematically drank that went, hey, this is possible, it has a ripple effect, doesn't it?
Tom literally started a fucking wave of positivity in people's lives by him making that decision. And I probably did everything to try and derail that. You know,
pathetic.
But like you know, he, for our friendship group, and it's a big friendship group, and there's a lot of people, a lot of acquaintances, there's a lot of people in music we kind of grew up around, and everyone's had to take a look at themselves, you know, and I followed suit with you. And then me and you were sober, and everyone was like, what kind of fucking universe
honestly,
are we living in?
If you told me 15 years ago that the three of us would be sat here having this conversation.
Because Jamie as well, man, I saw you around, you were fucking going for it as well, man. I saw you at some festivals and you were literally, you're having a Dr. That's your Marvel character.
The White Wizard.
Like that whole, you know, if you make a positive change and people see it, you're directly holding a mirror up to them. And Tom did that for me as well. And I was like, how's Tom done that, you know? And it gives you a little bit of hope to start thinking, if you see someone else can do it, you know, you can. If I can, then anyone can. And not everybody has the same issue as I do. People had it a lot worse than me too. And people had a lot worse drug and drink problems than me, you know, every day. But it's not a competition, and I think if you can handle your drink, I personally don't see any benefit in it at all now I'm completely sober. Like my life is so much better. It's like having 2 extra days in the week. You know, in terms of career, how I function, fitness, relationships, everything's better for it. But if you like a beer or you want to do the odd session or whatever, good for you. Like, as long as it's not, it's the scale, isn't it? It's like, is it serving you? And if it's not serving you and consequences are building up due to it, people around you are getting affected. Not everything is fucking about you. And that's what I was, self-centered, selfish. I was the addict, man. It was all about me. What could I get? You know, I didn't give a shit who got hurt in the process. And that's what everything has taught me to be, you know, by practicing sort of gratitude and all the stuff you see on like Instagram of people journaling and they're like, I'm a life coach. You know, that's where it was all come from. It's AA. And prior to that, it probably came from some fucking Buddhist temple. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, you know, is it serving you? And is it affecting people around you? You know, now I want to be useful. I want to give back. Not everything is about me. I'm not really that fucking important. You know, I really am not that important. And actually, it's none of my business what anyone thinks of me anymore. I don't need to drink on resentment or like ego or pride, or I don't feel enough, or, you know, Tom or Jamie think this of me and I got to prove something to them. I am me, and this is...
Well, that's what sobriety gives you. It just gives you yourself, and you become comfortable in your skin, and you stop giving a fuck as much.
That's it.
But isn't it funny that when you get that, you are ironically so much more there for other people in a way that's just like, you just don't care what people think.
Yeah.
Which is so, because I think my drug and drinking definitely all came from like perception. Who did I think I was? I didn't fucking know, so I needed to be something. Now it's like
I needed to be someone.
Fucking hate me.
And you know what? Even if you became the person you thought you wanted to be, you wouldn't have been happy anyway.
And also, no one cares.
And no one gives a fuck.
That's the funny thing. You like try and be this version of yourself that you think people want you to be. No one gives a fuck.
No one cares.
So that's the realization, isn't it? Like, more.
Everyone's got too much going on, man.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, everyone is their own number one, so it's like
The words of Kerrang, life is loud.
Well, there you go. I think big three questions. I'll take the first two.
I'll just take us to the wall,
And
because I've been doing a lot of
so I guess number one, for anyone that's thinking of going on a journey of sobriety or thinking that maybe it's worth giving a go, what's your single best piece of advice?
You're not missing out on anything. Your local's still going to be there on Friday, Saturday with the same old people getting wrecked. You know, like, you know, give it a try, see if it works for you. Maybe you'll find something out about yourself, because giving it a try, a lot of people don't actually realize how reliant they are on alcohol and drugs. And they think, well, I only do it a couple nights a week. Cool, we'll do a month. And then they get to 3 weeks and they're like, and you're like, okay, maybe there's something there that's not all that healthy, you know. But I know what it's like to be in complete denial, you know, and it's maybe worth just having a look and seeing how reliant you are on it.
Give it a go.
Yeah, give it a try.
Cool. Number two, what's the single best thing? If you had to pick one thing, what's the single best thing that sobriety has brought you?
Peace of mind. Peace of mind. That's all anyone can ask for. Not all the fucking money and car. Those things are great, don't get me wrong. You know, and achieving things, but that's what I never had. And that's why I needed that lifestyle. I wasn't able to be at peace. Don't get me wrong, I'm still... life's not easy, but I have to live life on life's terms. I can't control things out of my control. You know, and that's what I was always trying to do, control people, control places, control things. These are a few AA terms I'm chucking in there. But I was trying to always control things out of my control. And if you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Like life on life's terms, you know, and gratitude, writing gratitude lists and giving service, and it gives me peace. Ironically, doing things selflessly for others gives me something.
Yeah.
You know.
Thank you.
And finally,
The big one.
Mr. Green. We would love Alex to write a letter to drunk Alex. What would you say to him if you could start, dear Alex?
Do you know, I haven't even thought about this. You know, me and Tom spoke in on the car on the way up.
Said don't think about it. But yeah, what would you say to your 20-year-old self now if you saw him?
My 20-year-old self. It's a lot. To try and unpack that into like a few sentences, I'd have just said like let go, like have faith. I think I was holding on to so much, you know. I was holding on to things that I could never control. Don't be afraid, you know. I was living in fear. I think everything stems from fear, all that ego shit, pride. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think this letter could be very long. It could be biblically long. So I think, I think I'll leave it there, you know.
Amazing. Mate, thank you so much for coming on and
Yeah, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
sharing
That's
your
great.
story.
Yeah, thank you.
From staring down the barrel of a literal gun to where you are now.
Yeah.
It's an incredible journey, and it's really appreciate you sharing.